Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have an exciting guest. I have Dr.Rahul from Predictmedix, and he's going to be talking about Predictmedix and go in depth. So Dr. Rahul, could you just give a summary about Predictmedix?
Yes, absolutely, Landon. First of all, thanks for having me on. So with Predictmedix, we are an artificial intelligence company that is focused on workplace health and safety and healthcare. In terms of our verticals, we have developed a technology to screen for cannabis and alcohol impairment, which is in the process of being commercialized. We are discussing with major partners in North America to initiate pilots. The second technology, which has been commercialized, is our technology to screen for symptoms that associate with infectious diseases. Again, for which recently we had a large deployment at Super Bowl events, and that was a huge success, which got a lot of coverage in the US as well. The third vertical is that of mental health disorders, where we are developing a technology as we speak to screen for mental illnesses. And the fourth vertical is our remote patient monitoring platform, which we are commercializing to target the clinical trial market and also the human resource sector.
Wow. Okay, that's a great summary, and it excites me. Can you go a little bit in depth in the COVID part and how it went deploying in the US and how that all went?
So in the US, we had a deployment in collaboration with 11 Miami. They have been ranked amongst the top 10 nightclubs in the world. So they had some major parties going on in Tampa Bay. I wish I could be a part of them, but clearly that did not happen. We were busy deploying our technology there. So they had over 6,000 guests coming in over a span of 3 days. And our technology was deployed in an outdoor setting, which is something we never did before. I mean, because again, for us, it was always about workplaces. So you get these units indoors where there is no exposure to changes in weather. And so for us, it was something very new, where we had to modify our technology such that it could adapt to the outdoors and the outside environment. And the other key is the entire deployment was done using a mobile connection, where it was all about pretty much cellular data that was driving the whole process. So these units were deployed in conjunction with Wellness for Humanity, and they functioned more as the first step triage for everyone who was coming into the facility or into the party. So as people were coming in, they were being screened by these units, and everyone who was flagged then underwent a rapid antigen test to identify if they were COVID positive or not. And clearly, one of the individuals who was flagged, when they went on to do a rapid antigen test, they were identified to be COVID-19 positive. And and they were sent home along with the group members they came with. They were not allowed into the party. So the deployment was a huge success. We had some great coverage on Tampa Bay Times and Fox News as well. And we got a great testimonial even from the organizers, who pretty much said that this technology did precisely what they were wanting the technology to do. And of course, they did their due diligence before bringing this technology in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I believe that there weren't actually any false positives from your machine either. Is that correct?
I mean, that's right. So actually, I mean, if you look at the reports that were covered in the media, I mean, clearly those parties were a success. And the best thing was, using our machines, we were able to flag individuals who then really went on to test positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Do you want to talk a little bit about how this could be used in airports, and if you're in talks with airports or like concerts or like hockey arenas or anything to that regards?
So, I mean, clearly, I cannot talk about specific names considering we are a public company.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that ever since this deployment in the US turned out to be a huge success, the phone lines of our reseller, that is JuiceWorks Exhibits, has been ringing nonstop. They do have a fairly well-advanced sales pipeline, and they are negotiating with some of the largest players on the continent. Because again, with the technology, it's about you get these self-sustaining units and you just put them at a doorway. So really everyone who's coming in is being screened by the technology, and the output is in like 3 to 4 seconds. So it's more like a rapid way of screening individuals, and anyone who's flagged as being sick can then undergo perhaps a rapid antigen test to check if they're carrying COVID. So it does streamline the whole process. And the key is that it allows for um, a large volume of people. Usually that tends to be a limitation when you're talking about arenas, airports, or anywhere where you have a large movement of people. But our technology can actually do that because we can screen anywhere between 700 to 900 individuals in an hour. And
Wow.
that's using just one station.
Yeah, that's crazy. How long does it take to make these machines, and how many could you produce in, say, a month?
So there are two sides to this technology. So with these safe entry stations, the one side that you see is, of course, that hardware or that entry station, which is really our proprietary hardware configuration comprised of certain computing abilities, sensors, and multispectral cameras. And the second side to that is our AI algorithms, which actually sit on the cloud and they communicate with these safe entry stations. So in terms of how fast can those be done? While JuiceWorks exhibits, they have a pretty large facility just near Pearson Airport here in Toronto. And they have a capacity of manufacturing actually a few hundred units in a week. So the key is they have nailed the supply chain. Everything that's needed to manufacture the units is available to them. And along with that, I mean, of course, the first few always end up being the hardest because there you have to go back to the drawing board, perhaps fix things, tweak things because something's not available. So all that has been taken care of.
Yeah. Talking about that, how long did it take you to get the perfect machine?
Oh, it did take a lot of testing because see, when you develop an AI algorithm, I mean, you could have the best AI algorithm out there, but it depends on how the data is being collected. So really the safe entry stations are more of modules that are collecting data, which is analyzed by the AI algorithm, right? And as I said, so a lot of the analysis is also contingent upon where the units are placed. So let's say it's a cold day in Toronto. How are the units going to respond to that? It's a warm day in Tampa Bay where the units are being placed outdoors. So how would the units respond to that? And that's where you need to tweak AI and train AI such that your AI adjusts to all these different changes that can play a role when a decision is made to identify if someone is perhaps showing symptoms of diseases or not.
Yeah.
So for us, it was actually, I would say it took us a few months to get all that nailed.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. That's incredible though. And that's the great thing about AI is that it can adapt and change. So when you have these new variants, it can adapt itself and it can change to be able to detect for these, right?
I mean, exactly. So let's say with new variants, there is a change in the pattern of symptoms. So clearly our AI can adapt to that. And the other point that I'll add there is, so for instance, when we had these deployments in Tampa Bay, as I said, these were outdoor deployments. That is something we never envisioned before. It is not something we tried with our AI, but clearly our AI was able to adapt to that. And we did not need to do a lot of work to make sure it adapted to that, because again, all the work that we did over the past few months did make the AI more conducive to these changes. And that's part of the reason why this outdoor deployment in Tampa Bay did turn out to be a success.
Yeah. And then, so can anyone steal your software, or do you have any patents or anything like that?
So we have filed US patents for our AI algorithms. And as I said, the hardware configuration is also proprietary for Predictmedix. So when it comes to the hardware configuration, we are actually working on patent applications to get those secured as well.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Moving on, the share structure, talking about insiders and how many shares are fully diluted, including warrants and everything.
So I would say it's probably like around 100, 102 or 103 million shares. I mean, the exact number is there in our filings. I just cannot recall on top of my head. And at the same time, I mean, there is a significant insider ownership. The insider ownership is actually around 45%. And I mean, and if you look at insiders, I mean, if you look at the CEO and of the corporation and myself being the COO, I mean, we have not even sold a single share.
No, you guys have
and
actually,
we are the ones owning a good chunk of the company.
Yeah, you guys have actually bought some, because I was looking at it and I was watching, and there are some buys at 50 cents and some buys at 40 cents. And I mean, that's good to see, because you want, if it's a strong company, you want to see them buying into that company. It's not something that they're jumping ship from. They're getting on the ship.
That's right, absolutely. And so for us, it's about really building a sustainable and long-lasting business where Predictmedix can become a leader in the space of workplace health and safety. So for us, it's not about these day-to-day fluctuations in stock price. It's about building long-term value, which benefits investors, not day traders.
Exactly. That's what I like. That's what I like to hear. Talking about like any kind of catalyst or what could drive this stock price up in the long term, like few months or like a kind of time frame.
So, I mean, again, I mean, as I said, that from a business development standpoint, there has been a lot which has kickstarted ever since the Super Bowl event. We are working with Fortune 500 companies and some major partners on a global level. I mean, we are working with Paris Defense in India. From a business development standpoint, there are going to be a lot of developments which will act as catalysts. And in one of our corporate updates, we did identify that we have signed a LOI with one of the largest business or management consulting firms based out of the US. And their interest, again, lies in selling our technology to their clients. So I think the first catalyst is going to be business development. And the second catalyst is perhaps going to be some major partnerships that will be announced shortly.
Yeah, that's amazing. I actually read that corporate, and just like your technology being like offered to Fortune 500 companies is just incredible, because you think about how big these companies are, how many stores that they have, how many people go in and out of these stores. So when you have a device that scans 3 seconds and you can just walk in and get all these people in and then like out, that's exactly what they need right now. Where would you say this is going if COVID's going away, new variants coming in? Where do you see your technology being used for, like in the future, say a year from now? Is COVID still going to be around, or?
So safe entry station, as I said, it's more of the it's a hardware configuration, right? Which is communicating with the AI. The AI that it's communicating to can be symptom screening for diseases, or it can be impairment screening. So let's say as a facility, you get a safe entry station in here and you're like, okay, for 6 months, I want to do this in screening for infectious disease, and then I want to turn to impairment. Yes, that's doable. For us, it's about tackling the issues that are very important for workplace health and safety. And I mean, coming to COVID-19, so I mean, just a bit of my background. I mean, I used to be a professor at the University of Ottawa and a scientist with the National Research Council. So I did do a lot of work around immunology and infectious diseases. And if you look at the landscape of COVID-19, I mean, it's really more of a tug of war between vaccines and new variants. And recent articles seem to indicate that it's going to be perhaps one other virus that we'll need to deal with every year. So if that's the case, then just like influenza, there is going to be a COVID-19 pandemic every year. And we just got to make sure that from a workplace standpoint and from an economic standpoint, there are technologies in place to safeguard individuals. And that's where our technology comes in. And being an AI-driven technology, it has an ability to adapt to whatever changes come about with different variants or new viruses. So again, I mean, just going back, when you look at our technology, our initial focus was influenza. And because we started to work on it before COVID-19, and next thing you know, we were in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason we worked on influenza was because influenza by itself does carry a huge burden economically when you're talking about workplaces. And at Predictmedix, it's about delivering AI-driven solutions that tackle the biggest issues that are observed in a workplace setting.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's really amazing, just like the technology and how it's going to work. It's almost like a life-changing thing, because if you can keep people safe from going to work, like if they're on drugs or have drinking alcohol or like anything like that, and you can keep them away and you could save one life, or if they're sick and then so now you don't get your whole workforce sick, and it just like it's incredible. I think it's amazing. I think the technology is going to be cool. Yeah, so moving on, talking about like kind of promoting, because I mean, they're like, you guys talk with like Agoracom and other things, but is there any going to be like lots of promoting for Predictmedix?
So, I mean, I'm sure this is something that you have seen, that with Predictmedix, actually, from the promotion front, we are not doing much.
No.
And yeah, because at the end of the day, it's about building long-term value to shareholders that believe in what we are doing at Predictmedix.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason. And again, I mean, being the CEO and co-founder of the company, I believe in long-term prospects, and that's the reason. I mean, as I said, the CEO and COO both haven't sold a single share because we know where this is going. And for us, it's about putting out actual developments which act as catalysts for the stock, and not turning it into a promotion.
Yeah. So basically, it's just like let your work shine. Your work will eventually show for itself. Because I mean,
that's right.
When I found you guys, I was looking at the team and I was like, Microsoft, like you were at the university studying and like doctor, and I'm like, what the heck? Like this management team is so strong, and you guys are a $30 million company, and then I was looking at the technology, and I'm like, geez, like this is a hidden gem. Like this could be like a big company right now, but it's not. And then I'm looking like, why is that? And it's well, just because they're not trying to pump out and raise their stock price because there's no need to right now.
That's right, exactly.
Moving on to selling and renting out your equipment, how long do the leases, or how would you talk about that in leasing out your equipment to these kind of companies? How long would you say they last?
So usually the typical contracts are structured such that they are 12 or 24 months. And in terms of the payment structure, there is an upfront payment, and that is followed by a monthly recurring revenue based on, and it's really based on tiered pricing, which is dependent on the number of people that are being scanned on a monthly basis. And as there are more people being scanned, the cost per scan actually goes down. But overall, it works out to be at the level of a few cents for every scan.
Okay. And then so roughly giving like a scale, because I know it changes on customer, how much per year could one machine do in revenue?
So again, I mean, if I was to give a ballpark for one unit at a facility where there is a decent number of people that are going back and forth, I mean, that could be worth around anywhere between, let's say, $18,000 to $24,000 a year.
Okay. And then at a really high place, like the club or a concert, like really high volume, what would you say then if it was there for, let's say, a couple months?
Again, I mean, if there are more people, then clearly the monthly fee goes up, right? Because I mean, although they get a discount per individual, but overall the bulk monthly fee ends up going up. So for us, it ends up being a lot better if the facility has a larger movement of people, and that becomes even more profitable for us.
Okay, that's good to know. That wraps up our interview. Thanks so much for being on, Rahul, and I hope to have you back soon again, maybe when you guys get some big news. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Len. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks.